Okay, welcome to week 4, chapter 6. We're almost halfway there. Organizational strategy. So, this chapter talks about the components of sustainable competitive advantage and why it is important, the steps involved in the strategy making process, the different kinds of corporate level strategy, the different kinds of industry level strategy, and the components and kinds of firm level strategies. Okay, so resources. They're the assets, capabilities, processes, employee time, information, and knowledge used by an organization to improve its effectiveness and efficiencies and create and sustain a competitive advantage. Value provided by a firm that cannot be duplicated by other companies is what a sustainable advantage is. It's first your core competency is another phrase that's used for sustainable advantage. Core competency, I guess, was getting kind of old, so they replaced it with sustainable advantage. Remember, value is created when people are willing to give up their hard earned money for something else. So, if it's not worth as much as the effort that it took to make the money, then people aren't going to purchase it. So, you have to look at the value based on that. Achieve sustainable advantage, valuable, rare, imperfectly imitatable, I can't even pronounce that, and non-substitutable. So you have to have these elements. In other words, for another company not to come in and copy you and do it better than what you're doing it, and that's what keeps a sustainable advantage. So strategy making process. Assessing the needs of strategic change, conducting a situational analysis, and choosing strategic alternatives. Okay, so assessing the need for strategic change, competitive inertia, reluctance to change strategy or competitive practice that have been successful in the past. When the CEO Barra was at General Motors was asked why they have not switched over to electric vehicles, her statement was that they spent so much money on building all these facilities to make gas and diesel vehicles that they couldn't afford to switch. That's competitive inertia. Walmart taking so much time to actually create an online presence that was effective to compete with Amazon because they spent so much money building all of these big box stores that they didn't want to go online. That's competitive inertia. Just because you don't want to do something because of the money that you spent or for whatever reason doesn't mean that that's the best thing to do. Just look at Kmart, Chesapeake Energy's declared bankruptcy. J.C. Penney, their stock's down to 21 cents this morning. So it's not always a good strategy just because you've invested so much money to stay on that course. Strategic dissonance, discrepancy between a company's intended strategy and the strategic action taken by managers when implementing the strategy. A lot of that has to do with, even though the company says it should be this way, they may give bonuses out a different way. Many times when a company creates a new strategy, it actually lowers the profits. And if the bonuses aren't adjusted, then managers stick with the old or with whatever pays the most. There we go. And then a SWOT analysis, forming shadow strategy task force to examine the internal environment. So that would be your strengths and weaknesses. Categorization of companies within a strategy, core firms, central companies, and strategic group, and secondary firms, firms that follow the strategy related to but somewhat different from those core firms. Strategic reference point theory, managers should either choose a risk avoiding strategy or a risk seeking strategy. So if you're choosing a risk avoiding strategy, then everything that you look at is this the safest thing to do? Risk seeking means that you take the choices that are the riskiest that still would produce profits. Okay? Obviously, if you're in the medical field or offshore drilling for oil, you should really have a risk avoiding strategy. If it's something where people are not going to get hurt, then you might want to do a risk seeking strategy depending on how much cash you have. Strategic reference points, targets that managers use to measure whether their firm has developed the core competencies needed to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. So you look at the models here, and this is the Boston Consulting Group matrix. It's what's called BCG, Boston Consulting Group. And so this is saying that everything's in 4 sectors. Okay. So your question mark are your new things that you don't know if they're going to be profitable or not. They're too new, so we have no idea. So these are usually innovative things that come out, like when Apple came out with the iPad. Nobody knew if it was going to be profitable or not. When they came out with the iPhone, because they came out with the iPhone the same time that Amazon came out with their phone and Google came out with their phone, and Apple is doing great, and the other two's phones don't exist anymore, or I don't. Google may or may not have one. So you don't know. The question marks. Stars. These are things that are producing huge profits and that are growing rapidly, and they're the image of the company. So for Nike, that would be Air Jordan. They're the stars. For Apple now, it's the iPhone. Okay, dogs. These are things that you just need to get rid of. These are things no longer producing a profit. They're not good for the company image. They're just a waste of resources, and they need to go away. A cash cow is things that won't ever grow more than it is for the most part, unless something happens. But it's pretty much stable. It's plateaued. You don't have to put any money in it. People are buying it, and you can produce it to make good profits. Good profit margin, but you're never going to make a great profit margin. It's never going to grow dramatically, but it's not going to become a dog either. Uh, and great example of this before the coronavirus was Clorox bleach. It just sold off the shelf as a regular bleach for people to purchase. Um, Today's bleach is pretty much the same as it was 20 years ago. There's hardly any competitors to it, and you can either buy the store name brand or Clorox, and people would just buy it on a regular basis and with a cash cow. U-shaped relationship between diversity and risk. Obviously, the lower the risk, usually the less diverse and the lower the profits. If it's high risk, you have a single business or unrelated diversification. So if you have a lot of different types of businesses that don't really have anything to do with each other, that's a lot of risk. Or if you just have one business, that's a lot of risk. But if you have a lot of related businesses together that can feed off of each other, then that lowers the risk. So if you just have one rental house, that's very high risk. If you have several rental houses and you also have a repair company like a plumbing company, an electric company, a handyman type of company that can go in there and do all the repairs of the rental houses, then they can feed off of each other, and it's a much lower risk. Help organizations approaches to corporate level strategy. Grand strategy helps organizations achieve this strategy Growth focuses on increasing profits or market share. Um, and then you have stability, improving the current sales strategy. You have retrenchment, focuses on turning around poor company performance. Um, then you have the recovery, strategic actions take after retrenchment to return to a growth strategy. Many companies right now are in retrenchment. How are we going to survive this? Porter's five industry forces. Okay, so you have the character of rivalry. You have the threats of new entrants. You have the bargaining power of the buyers. You have the threat of the substitutes. You have the bargaining power of suppliers. This is how Walmart really took off because they had the power. They bought so much that they could command a lower price to the suppliers than their competitors could, and then they could give the lower price to the customers. And then the customers went to the competitors and say, "Well, Walmart's selling it for this price. Why aren't you?" And of course, they couldn't afford it because Walmart was getting it for a much lower price. And because Walmart grew exponentially, it was extremely difficult for new entrants because you weren't competing with one store, you were competing with the entire Walmart system, which made it very difficult. Amazon found a way to win there and become the new entrant that now is rivaling Walmart. And I just heard on the news tonight that there there's a mathematical way that Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, could become the first trillionaire if things keep going the way they are. Of course, nothing keeps going the way it is. But it's interesting that mathematically that's now possible for him to do that. And position strategies, you have the cost leadership. That means that you're producing everything at the lowest cost. Differentiation means that you have the product that's different. iPhone's a great example of that. And the focus strategy, leadership differentiating, producing specialized products. These are your niche products that nobody else makes. Adaptive strategy types, purpose for choosing an industry level strategy, best suited to change organization's external environment. And you have defenders, seek moderate, steady growth. Okay. Um, Prospectors seek fast growth. You know, prospectors like gold prospectors, they want to strike it rich type thing. That's where it comes from. And then analyzers seek to minimize risk. These are your accountants. These are your people that want to take the least amount of risk possible. And then your reactors change as the wind blows, basically. Okay. And your firm level strategies, direct competitor. Companies act to react to each other's strategies. Think of two gas stations across the street from each other and changing prices and how they react so quickly. Key factors are market commonality and resource similarity. Strategic moves for direct competitors, you can attack them. You have a price war or something like that. You can respond as soon as they move, you move counter to respond to them. And then strategic moves to come to the types. You have mirroring competitors. You know, whatever price you have your gasoline, I'm gonna have my gasoline. And then you're responding with a different dimension from competitors, move or attack. They could lower the price of the gasoline and you keep your gasoline the same, but you might offer, you know, a free beverage with every 5 gallons of gasoline to do something different than what they're doing. And that's the end of chapter 6, organizational strategy.